Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you kindly for stopping by. It's a rather wintry day here in Nairobi, I have to admit, but it's rather pleasant. Political reflections. Look at this. In Merkel's twilight, Germany's Greens drive to the brink of power. Reminded me of something Charlie Robertson had said. It's either going green and very pro-environmentalist, and this is what's happening in Germany. And, we're in this sort of maelstrom of populism. But there are some other trends which are not getting the visibility they deserve, and this is one of them. Joshua Wong, the student leader and face of Hong Kong's umbrella movement democracy protest, says Carrie Lam must resign, otherwise more Hong Kong people will come and join our fight. I don't know how many more can come. As I wrote over the weekend, Hong Kong is savouring a quite momentous geopolitical victory and seriously counter-trend in point of fact, or maybe that's just because I'm looking at it from Africa. Likes of cartoon. The supreme and paramount leader made his first, that I can recall, volte-face. Returning to Joshua Wong, hello world, hello freedom, I've just been released from prison, go Hong Kong, withdraw the extradition bill, Carrie Lam step down, drop all political prosecutions. Essentially, I think Xi understood Hong Kong could not be Xinjianged. And furthermore, being a paramount leader is a double-edged sword, which was evidenced in some comments I saw on Bloomberg. This is all on Xi's shoulders, said Trey McCarver. Xi has personally said he would handle relations with the United States, and at this point he has failed. Those relations are spiraling out of control. The periphery, I said, is a boil that will not be lanced. Official economic data out of China is beginning to roll over, with industrial production at 2002 lows. I said if President Trump could dial down the theatrics, it would be very clear that his signature tariff policy, coercive, sanctioned currency warfare, is inflicting a lot more pain that is being inflicted on it. President Xi spent his 66th birthday being fed Russian ice cream by his bestie Vladimir in Dushanbe, and who would not, because ice cream is a comfort food after all. And you see this in an RT.com. Putin satisfies Xi's sweet tooth by surprising him with an amazing birthday cake and some delicious Russian ice cream. Go back to Virilio, the revolutionary contingent attains its ideal form, not in the place of production, but in the street, where for a moment it stops being a cog in the technical machine and becomes a machine of attack, in other words, a producer of speed. Now go and look at this very short clip of about a minute. This is how Hong Kong got 1 million protesters on the streets. And of course, it's alarming Global Times, whose editorial says radical opposition groups in Hong Kong are colliding with hostile forces out of their own political motivations. And specifically, they point at the street. But it's because on that particular battleground, the Hong Kong protesters won. And that's why Virilio made that comment. Furthermore, there was an infection risk out of Hong Kong for any Taiwan politician running for office, proposing a peace agreement with China and one country, two systems policy platform is the kiss of death. Xi moved with the dispatch. Essentially, he understood Hong Kong could not be Xinjianged. But the tinderbox is the Chinese periphery. What really happened to Malaysia's missing airplane MH370? A really good in-depth article in The Atlantic. 11 minutes later, as the airplane closed in on a waypoint near the start of Vietnamese air traffic jurisdiction, the controller at Kuala Lumpur Centre radioed Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh. 120.9, good night. Zahari answered, "Good night, Malaysian 370. He did not read back the frequency as he should have, but otherwise the transmission sounded normal. It was the last word heard from MH370. As soon as MH370 disappeared from secondary radar, it turned sharply to the southwest, flew back across the Malay Peninsula, and banked around the island of Penang. From there it flew northwest up the Strait of Malacca and out across the Andaman Sea, where it faded beyond radar range into obscurity. Judging from the electronic evidence, this was not a controlled attempt at a water landing. The airplane must have fractured instantly into 1,000,000 pieces." In June 2016, Gibson turned his attention to the remote northeastern shores of Madagascar. This turned out to be the mother lode. Signals analysis was correct. The airplane flew for 6 hours until the flight came to a sudden end. There was no effort by someone at the controls to bring the airplane down gently. It shattered. A British woman who blogs under the name of Saucy Sailoress and does tarot readings for hire was vagabonding around southern Asia with her husband and dogs in an ocean-going sailboat. She says that on the night of MH370's disappearance, they were in the Andaman Sea, and she spotted what looked like a cruise missile coming at her. The missile morphed into a low-flying airplane with a well-lit cockpit bathed in a strange orange glow and trailing smoke. Lanello suspects that the purpose of the simulator flight may have been to leave a breadcrumb trail to say goodbye. Referring to the flight profile that MH370 would follow, Lanello said of Zahari, "It's as if he was simulating a simulation." Without a note of explanation, Zahari's reasoning is impossible to know, but the simulator flight cannot easily be dismissed as a random coincidence. Very interesting, well worth reading in full. I wrote about this disappearance in August 2014 when I said the signal announcing this new arrhythmic normal was the disappearance of MH370. We are not witnessing the flow of information so much as pure spectacle, or information made sacred, ritually unreadable. The small monitors of the office, home and car become a kind of idolatry here, where crowds might gather in astonishment. Very interesting reports have come out about demography. India is projected to overtake China as the world's most populous country around 2027 and reach a population peak around 2060. Most of Europe is shrinking, and by 2100 is expected to decrease by 120 million people from close to 750 million today. China is the world's most populous country around 2027 and reach a population peak around 2060. China's population is expected to fall by 375 million by 2100. World population is expected to reach 9.7 billion in 2050 and could peak at nearly 11 billion around 2100. Many of the fastest growing populations are in the poorest countries, said Mr. Liu Zhenmin. By 2100, less than 1 in 10 people will be Chinese, from close to 1 in 5 today. And then the FT has dived into Africa, saying Africa is going to propel the world's population towards 10 billion by 2050, set to double sub-Saharan Africa's pop over the next 30 years, adding an additional billion people and putting it on track to overtake Central and South Asia soon after as the world's most populous region. Trend is exemplified by Nigeria, whose population has already surged from 95 million in 1990 to 201 million this year, and is set to double again to more than 400 million by 2050. when it will have overtaken the US as the world's third most inhabited country. In Niger, where women on average have 7 children, the highest birth rate in the world, population is projected to almost triple to 66 million over the same time period. In 2050, it's expected that Niger will be the only country in the world experiencing a fertility level greater than 4 births per woman over a lifetime. And then saying 27 countries have fewer inhabitants now than in 2010, and the number expected to experience a decline between today and 2050 is 55. This is interesting. The US has gained the most immigrants over the past 10 years, about 10 million, and Germany has added 5 million. That makes it interesting about the whole immigration issue. People also continue to live longer, the UN reported. Average life expectancy at birth increased from 64.2 years in 1990 to 72.6 in 2019, and is expected to increase further to 77.1 in 2050. I wrote about this demographic dividend, and I asked, is it a demographic terminator? And I was asking it in the context of 2014 in Ouagadougou and the overthrow of Blaise Compaoré. That link is on the website as well.